for who's here?
Sure. Peter Driscoll.
Present.
Eric Nyland.
Here.
Daniel Spicer.
Here.
Mark Sprague.
Here.
Jim Barr.
Here.
And that's everyone, right? We're, other than Mike. Okay. If you wouldn't mind just scrolling down.
Going very slowly. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
That's okay.
My mouse is having a lot of fun right now. There we go.
Okay, so I will open the hearing in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 11. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Board will host a public hearing on Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Via Zoom to hear and act upon the applications of environmental pools. Actually, I'm sorry, before I open the hearing, didn't we have some non-hearing stuff that we were going to go through first?
We can do that now.
Or was that to be
It-
later on?
It depends on whichever you'd prefer. We can do correspondence. We can pick that up at any time. So.
Okay, well, I guess since we posted this at 7 o'clock, we'll start with the hearings, and then we can talk about the correspondence later. Okay, so sorry, as I continue to act upon the application of environmental pools, 184R River Neck Road, Chelmsford, Mass. The applicant seeks a special permit for an office and sales facility for the design and installation of swimming pools at 357 Main Street, identified on Assessor's Map 4D as parcel 21 in Bolton's Limited Business Zoning District pursuant to sections 250, 12D and 250-23 of the Code of the Zoning, Town of Bolton. The existing building will be modified and a new storage barn will be constructed along with storage areas. So is anyone here from Environmental Pools?
My name is Frank McPartland from Dillis and Roy. I'm the engineer representing the applicant, Environmental Pools, and I believe the applicant, Andrew Everley, is here as well. If you could
I
just,
am. How are you guys?
Hi, good evening. So if you, however you want to start the presentation for the.
Certainly. Is there any way to for me to have my screen shared, or is that not something you guys do? Because I could bring up a copy of the plan to just kind of walk through.
Are you able to share at this moment? I could also make you a host.
If you, I think, let me see. And find the right thing. All right. So if you can see my screen now,
Yes, yep.
this has a copy of the site plan. So this is the existing conditions plan, but the applicant, Environmental Pools, is proposing to convert the existing building at 357 Main Street into an office and sales facility to support their business focused on the design and installation of swimming pools. The existing building itself will be modified within the existing building footprint, and a new storage barn will be constructed along with some outside storage areas. The lot is approximately 14.91 acres in size and is located within the limited business zoning district. Lot coverage is approximately 3.9% of the site. There are existing wetland resources located to the north, west, and east of the project area. And we will be modifying an existing stormwater management outfall in the vicinity of the driveway and entrance. We're also proposing some additional subsurface infiltration systems to manage and improve stormwater conditions at the site. So as you can see, this is an existing developed site, as I'm sure you know if you've ever driven on 117. There's the existing driveway with an island, which helps control traffic flow into the building, into the driveway. There's the existing parking area, an existing traffic island, as well as an existing well behind the building, and an existing septic system. So we're not proposing any changes to the well and the septic system as part of this application. What the applicant is proposing to do, we jump to this site layout plan, which is zoomed in slightly, is to maintain the existing building footprint, restripe the parking lot, and slightly expand the paved area to provide sufficient parking to meet the town of Bolton's requirements for a building of this size. There's not currently plans to have that many employees, but we wanted to, while we are submitting this application and doing the site work, we wanted to bring the site up to compliance with the parking regulations. All that additional pavement is shown in this gray hatching around the site here and here, and slightly here. We wanted to make sure that there was sufficient room between the existing island and the existing concrete walk to provide a 24-foot aisle through that area. It was a little tight when we were looking at the design. We're also proposing a gravel drive around the back of the site, which will provide full access around the building, tying into some existing pavement at the west side of the building. The proposed storage barn is here to the east of the building, and then temporary storage areas for materials developed during the construction of pools are located here, and in this spot here. It should be noted that the site, the building itself, is approximately 200 feet back from the roadway, with a fairly substantial planted buffer, well-established trees between Route 117 and the parking area and the building itself. There's also quite a bit of ledge on site, as you can see in this area. So we were somewhat limited in where we could put drainage, as we'll see on the next page. If I'm going too fast and anything pops up, please feel free to interrupt me.
Actually, this is Eric. I actually do have a question on the parking. So
yes, Eric.
what was the calculation that you came for number of spots for parking?
So we came to, with a use category of office, we came to a required 86 spaces. And when we restriped for the parking area, we ended up with 89 spaces plus 4 accessible spaces.
So I don't have the new parking bylaw on hand, but that does seem excessive for your use. I don't know, would we consider this office? Do we have like a service category? I thought we did. Daniela, do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I would say I wouldn't necessarily consider this office, just because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not going to have individual offices in there, right? I mean, more of like a, or I guess if you want to describe what it's going to look like in the inside.
Correct. Andrew, this might be a good time for you to kind of step in with how you're planning on using the facility. Maybe.
Yeah, so I think the main use of the internal aspect of the building is going to be, we're going to have individual offices for employees, and then we're also going to have a showroom outfitted to be able to showcase some of the products that we use and some of the examples of what we do to clientele that come in.
How many offices do you anticipate having?
I think we were looking to do right around 10. a lot of it's going to be open space offices. So we're looking, a lot of it's going to be, maybe multiple people in one area, not just individually closed walls.
Yeah, so I guess the idea of the latest parking bylaw was to not overburden the layout with excessive parking. So I don't know if you think 89 is right, or if you think that's excessive, but we were just trying to, make it so that it was a to fit kind of design.
I know that our approach had been to come in with kind of a clean application and not seek any kind of parking relief.
Yeah.
But
Well, I understand. I was
I'm just not
trying
sure. When did that change? I'm just curious if it was something that we missed while we were developing
Like,
this, or
what, a year or two ago?
Yeah, it's
All right.
within the past 2 years.
okay.
It might be possible for the applicant to think about the amount of square footage that is dedicated to office and the amount of square footage of the building that's dedicated to other types of buildings. The board, I'm not sure. It is a zoning bylaw, so this board can't.
Well, I was just making sure that they were following the new one, and ultimately, I mean, the idea of the bylaw was just to, ease burden on the developer, because we found that in some instances we required way too much parking. So, I was just, as long as they're under the 50% impervious and they're okay with, the layout of the parking lot, I guess, we'd have to look at it design wise. We prefer less pavement if possible. But I just wanted to see if 89 seemed right to you guys, or where it fell into the new bylaw.
From our point of view, 89. We're never going to have 89. There'll be never 89 people in there. The 20 out of the 21,000 square feet of the building. I'm gonna. I don't have it off my. You're talking 5,000 to 6,000 square feet of actual office space in my mind. And the other square footage is going to be used for some internal storage.
So that could be something that we could look at.
Yeah.
And see
so
if there's some savings for the client and some adjustments that can be made to the amount of impervious on site.
Yeah, and I think
we're well under the 50% with the lot size.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I would say just take a note, and if you could reduce it and it saves you guys some design and saves some impervious, then it's probably a good thing. You see where we fit into the latest bylaw.
But then we had come in as with an interpretation of this building being straight office. It sounds like if we wanted to kind of pursue this more, we'd need to do a zoning filing to get it kind of a.
I don't think so.
No, I think it's more of just, it's not a zoning filing, it's more a description of what the building entails.
Okay.
You mentioned you're only going to have a small portion of this building that's dedicated to office. So that's where, whatever the square footage of that's dedicated to office, you'd need to, do the required spaces per that. But the rest of it would be looked at as a different use. And so part of the whole parking bylaw was allowing these different uses to have different parking requirements, and maybe it's a shared parking. Obviously you've got, it's all pretty much one use, but just different square footages that, whereas if this had multiple different tenants, you could have a use that that was really heavy in the morning versus another one that was really heavy in the evening. It doesn't make sense to just add them consecutively. It would make sense to actually offset them and say, okay, well, and look at more of a shared parking use. So there was a lot of leniency to kind of give towards developers to say, don't just call this one building, unless it was all office. But if where you've got clearly different uses within the building, like you just mentioned, 89 spaces seems absolutely excessive for this. So if it's not needed, let's look at what the actual office space is, and then what's the other category for the rest of the building. And most likely that's going to have a much smaller requirement for parking.
Yeah. So if we're 6,000 square feet of office, that would be 24 spaces. So
Yeah,
we're
and
we're down somewhere around a quarter to a third
Yeah,
of.
and
what we're showing.
you still have to add the spaces for the rest of the portion of the
Yes.
building. It's just going to be at a different rate. It's not going to be per 250, so that's what we're saying is if you look at the latest parking requirements, see what makes sense for the rest of the building.
Yes, and I can see if sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth between another screen trying to see if there's an appropriate, easily used appropriate use.
And it may not be straightforward, but something that makes more sense than office, obviously, for the rest
Yes,
of the
yes.
building.
It looks like there's kind of maybe a manufacturing
That's,
that might fit, and that's 1 per 800.
Yeah.
So even if we did that, that would put us at 44 spaces total between
Yeah, so
the
you
two
just-
uses, which
would just cut it in half, so.
might make, yeah, it sounds like that would make kind of everyone happier.
Yep, thank you. Okay, continue.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Moving on to the grading, drainage, and utility plan.
One question before you do. So
Yes, Mark.
we're on the right side, there's a little triangle there, where the driveway you're after on the building.
This here?
No,
Or,
just slightly up to and left from there.
oh,
where you were.
this?
Yeah.
Yes. So that, when this build, at one point, well before I ever became involved with this property, it was a much larger parcel. And a good portion of that was conveyed to the town of Bolton as either conservation land or open space. So this is a town of Bolton parcel, but because
Okay.
of where the building was, they needed to maintain some kind of set, looks like the intent was 50 feet and ended up being
Yeah.
52.9. So the property line, and I'll just mark this up real quick so we can see it. Property line goes, bear with me, from along this line out to here and down and like this.
Okay.
So that red line is the property line.
Okay. So a little sliver of the is in the residential and the rest is in the limited business.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you are correct.
Yeah. Okay. So that's pre-existing. So you're not looking for a land swap or anything like that there.
No, we're
Okay.
we're not looking for a land swap, and all of our proposed activity is within the limited business.
Okay.
Okay, jumping on to the grading and drainage plan. What we have proposed is the construction of a berm at this end of the site to create a small basin. Because what happens right now is there are 2 existing catch basins, and they just discharge right to existing grade, and that dumps right down into the wetland and the stream down here. So what we're proposing as part of our storm water management on the site is construction of this berm and sediment forebay to provide storm water management flow control and TSS removal prior to discharge at this location.
So will that be like a constructed embankment with like so that there's no breakthrough and stuff like that?
That'll be a constructed embankment. We've been finding that let me check the detail before I speak here, but we've generally been finding that the impervious layers barriers haven't really been needed on the basins here, so it would just be an earthen berm.
Okay. And do you have, so the bottom of your basin's at elevation, I think it's 310.
310, yes.
What's your depth to either ledge or groundwater?
Our depth at that location, so this is constructed entirely in fill. So we're not cutting,
Oh, okay.
or maybe a very minimal cut. And I'm looking for my test pit 8069.
I mean, if it's all in fill, most likely you're fine.
Yeah, it's most likely in fill 8069. We had a 74-inch deep test pit at that location, and groundwater was observed at 70 inches.
And you obviously
Which-
didn't hit ledge.
And we didn't hit ledge there, no. And if I remember right, that 70 inches roughly corresponds to the stream that's down
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Calling out on existing catch basins on note 10. We're having the contractor verify that the existing catch basins have a 4-foot sump. And if they do, we're having them be left in place. But if they aren't deep sump catch basins, we're directing the contractor to swap them out.
Okay.
So there'll be a full treatment train of catch basins to sediment forebay in that location.
So that will remove most of the vegetation that's screening the property on that side, right?
In this side, there would be the vegetation would be pulled back about to the property line. Yes, for
Okay.
on this side.
And I'm assuming by enlarging the basin as well, you're meeting your peak rates for the
Yes,
210?
we are meeting peak rates for all storm events, and that was documented in our report. But
Are you meeting peak rates and peak volume?
we are meeting peak rate. Let me see if we documented volume. I know we're meeting our recharge requirements too, so that tends to meet volume. We're not discharging from either one of the infiltration systems. So the two infiltration systems that are proposed are providing full volume, full recharge up to the 100-year storm. So I can prepare a table to document volume.
Yeah, if you can just, that was a bylaw, or that was a change, 1 year or 2 years ago, I can't remember, but to document not just peak rates for the same storm events, but also peak volumes. For both, for both existing and proposed.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure that we are, because we have, again, as I said, there are two subsurface infiltration areas kind of picking up the rest of the disturbance, as well as some of the existing parking and impervious areas. So we're fully infiltrating those.
So you've got your parking lot that's above, it's going to, was it catch basin 1, and then it's
Yep.
going down to this subsurface basin, and then is there an overflow from there, or what's
This does have an emergency overflow. This structure here is basically a catch basin that if this system is in failure, or it gets more than 100-year flow that it can handle, it will bubble out there and it won't back up. Yes.
And then we'll just overflow. Okay.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to look through the stormwater report, but what's the rainfall data that you were using?
Good question. We use the
Didn't mean to put you on the spot there, sorry.
Yeah, no, are you looking for the Cornell numbers, or?
Well, I guess I want to know,
Yeah.
did you use Cornell? Did you use TP40? Did you use NOAA Atlas 14?
Yeah, no, we use, that is a good question. And off the top of my head, I don't see it documented, unfortunately.
So I guess if you could just provide that.
Yep. Source of rainfall, yes.
Yeah, we did put, just so you know, we did put when we had made that stormwater change a couple years ago to require peak volumes. It did also require the use of NOAA Atlas 14 rainfall data versus the TP. So it's a little bit more stringent than the DEP.
Right,
report.
right. Right, no, and I don't see it one way or the other, so I don't want to,
Okay,
I don't want
yes,
to
if you can
speak
just-
out of turn for what it is.
And it
at
might
this
be in
time.
the HydroCAD calcs.
It's
provided.
in the, it spells out the rainfalls themselves. I just don't remember offhand what the,
Okay,
unless you know what it is. It was, we have a 7-inch for the 100-year. But
So
it
it could be, yeah.
it sounds right, but I don't want to speak in the affirmative at
No, that's
this
right. You
time
can
about
just, yeah,
this.
you can just follow up with that. That'd be great.
Yes. So we also have in the back here a secondary infiltration area, collecting both the runoff from the proposed storage barn as well as runoff from the grading and construction in the back here. So this one, I believe, would bubble out. I think this one relied on relief from the catch basins. It didn't have quite the same relief setup as in infiltration area A, just because of its configuration.
I might on that one, I would just be concerned with it having to surcharge back to the whole system if there was
Yeah.
a large storm. I would probably look to provide an outlet control structure or just something, something where it doesn't have to go back and be surcharged and resuspend everything. I think you're going to have a bit of a nightmare maintenance wise if that ends up happening. So if there's a way to provide a structure or something, and even if it's a structure that has a culvert, that has to discharge a little further away for you to daylight,
Right.
that would be fine. But I think you'd want to definitely try to have.
Looking at this now that I'm oh no, that trench is
Yeah, that's
collection.
going in. That's
Never
going
mind. Yeah, for a second I thought that was a potential level spreader, but that's more of a level collection trench
Mhm.
as opposed to a catch basin. But we could certainly put something
Yeah,
on
in the back.
this run, something remote from where it comes in to kind of bubble out.
Yeah, and if you don't want to have it as a catch basin, again, just having it as a structure with a culvert and then put the culvert where it can daylight, just to give you
Yes.
some relief, so that it's going to continue to flow that way and not surcharge back on you.
Yes. So that kind of went over those. The site has been fully surrounded with erosion control barriers to be installed around the limits of where we're putting in where we're doing actual site grading and construction activities. And it's been put on kind of the downhill sides of where the work is. So it's around here, around this proposed outdoor storage area, down around the grading, around the basin, around this infiltration area, and around the toe of the basin. So I think at this time, I'd like to turn it back over to the board and see if there are any other questions about what's been in the packet or what's been presented tonight. If there's anything you're looking for clarification that we haven't covered yet.
I've already kind of asked my big questions that I usually do. So if other members of the board want to jump in, go right ahead.
I think part of the special permit, we typically ask about lighting. Also, see. Well, lighting's one. What else? Hours of operation. What else do we ask?
Turn a light on.
Do you have a lighting plan here?
I don't know if we have a specific lighting plan. Andrew, were we maintaining existing lighting that's around the building, or were you planning any kind of upgrades to that?
No, there is lighting around the building, and we had talked about having some potential lighting on that future barn, as well as potential low voltage lighting within some landscape beds in front of the building.
But no plan like lighting tower pole lights in the
No, we
parking or
didn't.
anything.
Yeah, we did not plan for any additional pole lights than what was already out there.
Well, whatever lights you add, we typically ask for a full cutoff. LED, I think, is nice.
Yeah, I envision all the lighting we do up against the building is just like low voltage landscape lighting.
Okay.
And our typical business operations are Monday through Friday, between 6 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Okay, so you're pretty much, other than sometimes in the winter, you're pretty much during daylight hours anyways.
Correct.
Although
I'm
the
sorry, what time did
the
you
showroom
say it
parking
started?
is longer.
Typically, we have crews rolling in around 6 a.m.
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as hours, and the showroom part of it might be open into the evening by appointment, or generally not.
Generally not. I I could see that by appointment only, maybe on a Saturday here every now and then. But actually all the activity typically happens within business hours. And nowadays with the Zoom stuff, we probably really mitigate foot traffic compared to what we had about a year ago.
Okay, what does the drainage along along Route 117 look like? I was wondering where we got the overflow on the new infiltration, whether there's sufficient drainage there to drain it away and keep it off the road.
Well, yeah, in the event that overflows, it would run down to a drain inlet A that's called out here, would be the first point of relief. But I would imagine that if this is being inundated, the street drainage itself would likely be inundated as well.
Yeah. Mark, with our new regulations, by requiring them to meet the peak volumes as well, whatever is kind of getting to that catch basin should be equal or less to what is under existing now. Not just with the rates, but the actual volumes as well. So it shouldn't be anything more than what we would see under existing conditions.
Okay. And I was just wondering if it was worth tying the overflow on there into the other catch basins to, as an emergency, if that infiltration area is, gets jammed up or something, as a kind of an emergency overflow that way. But
You're
okay.
you're suggesting a pipe from the infiltration area A to the infiltration basin, kind of across the driveway.
Yeah, or into the existing catch basin, which will be plumbed in there as well. It's just a question. I'm not sure if it's needed or not. Just right now, coming off the parking lot, you've got all the vegetative area there, and now with the infiltration area, you're moving that closer to the road. So,
right. So we do lose some of that vegetation with the infiltration area.
Yep.
But if I'm looking at the topography, it might, if that overflows, it might flow kind of, double check my directions, kind of westerly and end up in the stream. Some might get to 117, but even that There's not a lot of topography on our plan for 117, but this is the 310. See the shape of the kind of the contours there.
Mhm.
So there's kind of there's a gutter line heading down this way. So anything that bubbled out of an infiltration area A in a storm event in excess of the 100-year storm would be flowing down towards the stream there.
There are currently drainage issues right now on the site that are that you guys are trying to bring up that have been seen. Is that one of the issues, or?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm just, we're adding more impervious area and removing some of the vegetative cover. So, it's always a little bit of a concern, but I haven't been by there in a 100-year storm to see if there's a problem or not. So, yeah. Okay.
Were there other questions, comments from the board?
Is there a planting plan around the embankment for the the basin, or is it just going to be grass?
We've proposed grass. This will be going to conservation, so they would like we have feedback on what would be planted in this location. So we would like to work with them on that, because it's within kind of the 100-foot buffer zone.
How deep is it?
How deep?
Yeah, how deep are you building this in berm?
The basin, 5 feet.
5. All right, so that's pretty deep. Will you be proposing a fence around that? I guess what is the elevation that the 100-year storm, ponds up at? Is it at the top of it, like at 5 feet?
Yeah, so the 100-year ponds at.
Or do you have a freeboard or?
Yeah, the 100-year would pond at, bear with me, that's it's supposed to be on that detail. The 100-year ponds at. $313.84. So it ponds at 3'10".
So you still have a foot of freeboard.
We still have we have over a foot of
Yep.
freeboard there, yeah.
And it's 3-to-1 slopes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it would definitely be good to see if there could be some vegetation proposed other than grass along the slope, but I would leave that up to the Concom for what they might want to provide or require. But just with a lot of the loss of trees right there would be, if there's other things that could be installed, that would be great.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do trees on the berm, just because I've had that cause wicking problems with the roots and lead to failure. But maybe some other kind of shrub planting or something might be appropriate.
Yeah.
And do you actually have a landscape plan, or are you proposing landscaping within the?
No, we had asked for a waiver on submitting that, given the existing buffer along that would be maintained along this side of the property, and how far back the building was pushed. Andrew, are there existing plantings around the building?
They had the existing plantings along the front side of the building, yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Not hearing any. Are there any questions or comments from members, the audience? And I don't know if everyone's available to unmute themselves. If you're not, you can always raise your hand. But not hearing any. Go ahead.
Are you planning any changes to the exterior of the building, or you'll keep the facade the same?
Yeah, we plan on just keeping the facade the same and cleaning it up.
Okay.
The very last page of the application packet has a mock-up from the architect of the kind of what the building's going to look like. On the front.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Ed Schenkel.
Hi, Ed, please go ahead.
Hi, my
just
wife and I, Joan,
just-
are watching this, and we're residents on the back end, so that's more where our interest lies.
That's fine. Just can you first state your address, please? Name and address.
277 Main Street.
Thank you.
Okay. So on the back side, first question is, you spoke about the lighting and the type of lighting and so forth. Would that lighting be on throughout the evening for security purposes on the new storage barn in the back?
We plan on having the facility locked up in the front with no access getting to the back. So we don't plan on having lighting throughout the whole property being on overnight.
Okay, that's good to know. On the temporary storage area that's adjacent to the barn, I think it's right behind it if I remember correctly. Is that going to be open racked storage, or is that just ground level storage?
Yeah, we have open rack storage. So it's going to be somewhat of both. We have open rack storage for PVC, lumber, and some rebar.
Uh-huh. And will there be tree removal going on to support all that back there?
We did. I think on the plan there was a limit of clearing. If you, yeah, we did have a limited clearing work back there to allow for the storage to happen.
All right, sounds good. One thing I'd really like to be able to do, if at all possible, is just do a walkthrough with somebody on that back end, just so I get a sense of where everything is going to be. Obviously that's not a legal requirement or anything, but simply just to help me understand a little bit better what it's going to look like.
Where, sir, where's your property again? If I may ask that through the board?
Yeah, we're one of the properties right behind. So the one uphill from us is the Molinas, and we're just downhill from them. So it's probably where you're zeroing in right now.
Probably about here. So that, if I could just calibrate my drawing here. Sure my distances are right.
While he's doing that, I mean, out of courtesy for everybody in the area, I have no problem walking the site with you guys and showing you what the envision is and what we see. Obviously looking at something on paper is a little bit different than walking the site. So I have no problem setting aside time to do that.
That'd be great. I really appreciate that. We have sort of like an uphill view, if you will, of the property where the stream is between us and lower property, and we're sort of looking up. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what we're going to be looking at.
So we're maintaining about 160 feet of existing vegetation along that back property line.
Uh-huh.
Just for reference.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like there's an area up there that I don't know if it was just cleared out or just used to put some trees and such that were cleared out, sort of stacked up. And I'm trying to get a sense of where it all fits relative to that. But anyway, was that Eric who was responding to me about doing a walkthrough?
This was Andy, the owner of
Andy.
Environmental Pools. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so if we could arrange that, that would be terrific. How would I best get a hold of you to do that?
You could call my office, or it could actually take your, if you have an email, it could take your email.
Sure, it's EJ Shankle, SHANKLE, @AOL.com.
SHANKLE@AOL.com.
Right,
Okay. Yeah, I'll shoot you an email. We can set up a time.
super. I'm retired, so I can do it anytime, basically.
Perfect. I wish I was.
Any other questions? All right. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Valerie.
Yes, just a few process questions just to make sure that I'm clear on everything as well. So that the board members are aware that the applicant has provided an application to the DRB for review. So if that is of interest, it might be important to discuss that at some point. It also would be helpful to kind of talk a little bit more about the waiver requests and just get a sense of where the board is on those, particularly the landscaping plan. Hearing more comments about lighting, that's often addressed in that plan, as well as the limit of clearing. We may want to see more there. As well, I just wanted to mention too that we have not received comments back from a peer reviewer for the engineering. So
I definitely, if there's proposed lighting, I would like to see a plan that's showing where that proposed lighting will be, and what type of fixtures would be proposed. Whether they're building mounted or whatever they are, because we do have requirements with regard to cutoffs and stuff like that, as I think Eric and Mark were mentioning. So that would be something we definitely want to see.
And then I can also forward along to the applicant and their engineer the comments that we've received from other departments as well. I think most notably is some comments we've received from the Conservation Commission, just thinking about the proximity of the temporary outdoor storage facilities to the riparian zone and to the wetlands. So we might want to take a little bit more of a look at that, particularly I think it was the southeast section of the driveway. They were talking about an encroachment over there. Or maybe
or
perhaps
southwest? Southwest, maybe?
Southeast, I'm sorry, the parking area.
Oh.
So
along, yeah, just about.
This area that was increased.
So I think the one thing is if there's, once you kind of go back and look at the parking requirements, and if you're able to reduce that, like I think we would, I think you will be able to, we definitely like to see that reduction in impervious area. And maybe that will help you with some of your encroachments that the Conservation Commission is talking about, as well as, reducing the impervious areas, always, the more the better.
Yes, because there's, so existing, what's kind of out here, you see, so we sorry, this isn't existing, but we restriped this to be, this is 33 spaces itself right in front of the building. And then existing, there's about 32 spaces in an existing paved area in the back. So between the two of those, I think we would be in excess of, we would likely meet it, but I would certainly want to discuss that with the client first before we.
Sure. Yeah. No, that would be great, because I think that would bring your, you're not going to need to go into that hillside where you've got the proposed bituminous concrete as well as the other proposed pavement near the storage shed, you might not need those spaces. So maybe that can even bring some of that work, that pavement in.
Right.
Right. And
Eh,
speaking
And, and we are planning a submission to the Conservation Commission. We wanted to do that kind of after we had this hearing, just to make sure that there was a project here. And if we came into the board and we were getting all sorts of red lights, it would be a different thing. But we are planning up next a submission to conservation.
And along the lines of parking as well, I know that the Conservation Commission had mentioned a previous discussion with the applicant, thinking about the proximity of a trail just abutting the property towards Rattlesnake Hill, and thinking about possibly the opportunity to set aside some permanent parking spaces for residents to access those trails. So I don't know if that's a conversation that has, moved further with the applicant, but that's something that that the town would be interested in.
That's not something I'm aware of, but I can discuss that with my client. I know he was saying that for security reasons, they were planning on gating off the access. So that would have to be worked out between the needs of people to access a trail as well as his security needs.
Sure.
Did you have anything else, Valerie, that you
See,
wanted to?
I think it would be, if the board wanted to talk a little bit more about whether the design review board should be brought in, that would be helpful for me, so that we can, if that is of interest, that we can start that process.
I think typically when we have new buildings, we usually look to require it and stuff. I mean, this is a little bit different in the fact that the existing building is remaining and it's just a storage, barn that's going to be added. I'd be willing to hear what the rest of the board members would like to do.
Is the barn visible from the road, or is it kind of in the back?
The barn is in the back. It's to the it's to the east of the it's kind of to the east of the back face of the building. So it's to the right and up from the building, and from the road that would be a stretch of existing vegetation that isn't cleared.
Is the plan just kind of an industrial type building, kind of just like
That's correct.
corrugated?
Yeah, that's correct. It's just
I mean, Danielle, maybe you have a better opinion because you're on the design review board. But in this case, if it's not really visible and it's just intended to be an industrial storage area, I don't know.
I think that's where I was a little bit hesitant, because again, the existing building is remaining. The proposed barn is small, it's further back, it's hidden from the road. And the rest of the components that we're going to be talking about that are closer to the road are more Stormwater Conservation Commission related. So, but if someone felt it was appropriate to put it forth, I didn't want to say no, but I don't necessarily think that this is a definite one to go in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, if it's just like a corrugated metal, I don't know what design review board would even do.
Yeah.
I don't see a need for it.
Okay.
What's the size of the barn? Uh, 50 by,
I think it's 50 by 80.
Yeah,
50 by 80, yeah, so 4,000 square feet.
and how tall is it going to be?
Andrew?
I'm not exactly sure what the peak elevation is gonna be.
Okay.
You don't plan on having like high bay storage or anything, right?
No, it's gonna be, I envision it being a steel structure with garage bays in one side, but just an open concept in the front. That's it. No offices, nothing. Just a complete storage with garage bays.
Yep. And those garage bays would be on the north side of the building.
Correct.
So with 117 being far to the south.
Oh, so so you're not gonna even see the garage space. Okay,
No,
I
you won't
gotcha.
see the garage bays, no.
And that would be where any of the security lighting would be, right, Andrew?
Yeah, correct. That's the lighting would be on that. But then again, I'm not looking to have lighting on at all times,
Correct.
especially with the fact that I want to have a gated, I want to have a gated entrance.
Now, are you looking at a berm around the back of your temporary storage areas just to contain any rain or anything, any liquid that gets onto those, and keep it out of the wetland areas?
So like the outdoor store and adjacent of the garage?
Yeah, like around the temporary outdoors. Yeah, where you are there.
Yeah, I would so that's all low lying storage for the most part. I'm ideally going to be utilizing, concrete blocks to mitigate anything. It's all going to be self-contained in like a concrete block storage type setup. So there's no way that anything can run off from where we're storing our different material.
Okay.
Okay, well, did anyone, I heard a couple saying that we didn't think that it needed to be DRB. Is there anyone on the board that feels that we should send it to DRB? Or should have DRB review it? Okay, so I'm not hearing anything. So I think this one's okay. We don't need to recommend, Valerie, if you want to note that we don't need to recommend DRB for this one.
And Valerie, I meant to ask you, who is the peer reviewer?
This to Places Associates.
Places, okay.
So I guess the question would be would this be continued to the next hearing, or does it make sense to continue it a little bit longer? Valerie, do you know when we anticipate getting our peer review information back?
Given, the transition of my position, I actually had asked to see if it could be in by the next public hearing. We had sent it not too long ago. So April 28th was the idea, but I don't know if the applicant has heard other ideas here that might lead to further consideration of site planning.
Well, we will have to do that parking evaluation as well as get into conservation.
Yeah, I was gonna say continue it because I think the parking could probably really be reduced. So it'd be good to see that the next time we can schedule.
And that might have some, well, I mean, you can continue to wherever you want. I mean, if you want to continue to 28th, and then if you need to go further, you just need to let Valerie know.
That might be the easiest thing
Yeah,
be to right now we'll continue to the 28th. Valerie, I'll send you a letter tomorrow or Friday. And then if need be, we'll bump it.
Okay.
And if you need any help interpreting the parking bylaw, we can help you in the interim.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I'll if I have, when I come up with an approach, I'll forward it and make sure that it passes muster before we put pen to paper, as it were.
Yeah, Ray, I wouldn't want you to have to wait until the next meeting and, definitely be interactive about it. Send your calculation to Valerie.
All right, do we need a motion to continue? All right,
Yes, we will.
I think I have to request it. I would like to request a continuance to the April 28th hearing.
can someone put forward a motion?
I'll move that we continue this to April 28th at Valerie 7. Do we have anything else on the agenda yet?
Yes, we actually do. We do have a public hearing at 7. So if we want to continue to 7:30 or 8, I think 8 might be best.
Okay, I move that we continue this to April 28th at 8 p.m.
28th.
It's not crossed off, right?
Sorry, it's,
You just muted yourself, Danielle.
sorry, I was, I think I got muted, but I was just gonna say, was there a second? I missed the second.
I seconded it.
Thank you, Eric. And then Valerie, if you can do a roll call for all those in favor?
Sure. Peter Driscoll,
Aye.
Michael Gore, or I'm sorry, no, he's not available. So Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Daniel Spicer,
Aye.
Mark Sprague,
Aye.
and James Barr.
Aye.
So
All right.
Jim, you will be voting on this one.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're gonna jump onto the next one. The next hearing, the planning board will hold a public hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81Q on Wednesday, April 14th at 8 to amend the Town of Bolton subdivision rules and regulations and the Town of Bolton Design Review Board and regulations. So I think with the Bolton subdivision rules and regulations, if you want to bring up, well, if you've got the subdivision rules and regulations and just kind of walk through the changes that are being proposed, that would be great.
Sure. So I think they start farther down on page 19. Sorry for all the scrolling.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. So this first comment relates to and also requiring driveway curb cuts to be shown. And then Erica had added a note wondering if we should also add driveway entrances within the right of way to the plan.
Would you mind just zooming in just a little bit? Sorry,
Sure.
my,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Driveway entrances. I guess I'm just trying to remember what she meant by the driveway entrances, because the curb cuts would be the entrances, wouldn't they?
I would assume.
Or unless,
It's hard not to be the one that wrote this.
yeah. Do you guys, Mark or Eric or anyone else, like, I know the intent is that we wanted to be able to not just show what's, the main road, but also to show the driveway entrances kind of coming in within the right of way. So maybe it's not just the curb cut, it's actually extending the driveway entrance to the right of way so that it's clear all of the area within the right of way where those will be located. So maybe it's just the driveway curb cuts up to the edge of right of way, just for clarification.
Yeah, so we see the angle of the driveway, not just the,
Exactly, not just the
Okay.
opening. So I think that was the intent. So we could say, and driveway curb cuts, or you could even just say driveway entrances. I mean, instead of saying driveway curb cuts, you could just say, and driveway entrances up to, edge of right of way. Because that would show, I think, what we're trying to get at. Not just the curb cut, but also where it extends up to the edge of the right of way.
Okay, so and driveway entrances up to the edge of right of way.
Yes. Does anyone disagree with that or have concerns with that? Okay. All right, so we can go on to the next one.
All right. So the next is on page 30. It's just a non-substantive, just a numbering change.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
And then from there,
Oh, actually, sorry, we have, excuse me. We do have a comment, from Liz, and from the public. So, yeah, go ahead, Liz, if you want to, this is open up to public comment. So if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, sorry, this is Jason Hutchins on the same
Oh,
one.
sorry, go ahead.
My only question is, I'm just kind of curious what the basis for it is if the town is not concerned with if the driveway curb cuts are not scrutinized in subdivisions, why would we need the plan if a builder could move them wherever they want within the property line?
Well, I think the understanding is right now there's leniency for them to be moved within the property line, but by us asking for it to be shown within here, it might tie it down a little bit more. So there's more ability to enforce that location where that curb cut necessarily needs to be.
How would the curb cut drawing be different than a driveway permit as far as showing the location?
So it's not a curb cut drawing. So it's the subdivision plans that would kind of come in. So that's the difference is, and typically on, so it would be showing on the subdivision plans, and correct me, Val, if I'm saying anything out of whack here, but on the subdivision plans, we would then be requiring them to show, the driveways up to, within the right of way. And having that be part of the subdivision plan.
So the subdivision
difference-
plan,
if I
Go ahead.
may, just a difference in enforceability between subdivision control law and a local driveway permit.
so anything that's written on the subdivision plans is enforceable versus if it's a permit, there's more leniency?
Yes, I mean, I say that with a little caveat. I would say anything, but yes, the basic rules of it is, when it's written within the subdivision rules and regulations, the town can stand behind those requirements and enforce that a lot easier than something that is not within this subdivision rules and regs.
So you're saying that if you say in the subdivision regs that I'll call it curb cuts for simplicity here, the curb cuts need to be shown that it is enforceable because it's in the subdivision regulations that you specifically call out curb cuts, and that's why you can enforce it. Am I saying that right? So the fact, if you have something else if you just say if on a subdivision plan, they just happen to show it, but it wasn't specifically stated in the bylaws, is that
Correct.
then if you
That's Yes, I think that's a little bit of the nuance. So because it wasn't specifically stated in the bylaw, it's not necessarily enforceable. That's at least my understanding. I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty. We do rely on town council for that. But what we're trying to do is make it a little bit more enforceable with regard to the plan, the subdivision plan, and what's being submitted with that. And so if we are asking for the curb cut entrances, within the right of way to be shown on the subdivision plans, those locations now could potentially be enforceable, down the line.
Okay, but the driveway permits are not enforceable. So then why don't we take that out of the subdivision requirements that they have to submit for a driveway permit. If the driveway permit is completely, pretty much a useless piece of paper, then this would enforce the location. So what is the point of the driveway permit? Why don't we pull that out? Because that's a waste of everyone's time and money to force people to go through that process if it doesn't matter.
It's on the, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The driveway permit does kick off a good workflow within Town Hall. So it is a way to coordinate on this type of work within Town Hall. But I do think, I know Liz and Jason, that you have a particular, question at your own home. And I would just ask that perhaps we are able to continue to discuss this document and perhaps just touch base, later on.
Right, but this isn't specifically about our house. It's just understanding moving forward where my tax money is going to, paying people to review drawings and documents. And even for that matter, the contractors are going out and going to their engineers and whatnot and having this information put in. I'm trying to make sure that logically this makes sense, because I do feel that there are a number of things written into these regulations that don't make a lot of sense. And just, they're contradictory. So just for clarification, like, I know you guys are familiar with this regulation, but you have homeowners and whatnot who are also using this to make sense of what's going on with their contractor and developer. And the way that this is written, it's extremely, extremely convoluted. So that's what I'm bringing to this table. You can see in our specific situation where that convolution, if you will, comes from. So that's what I'm trying to clarify here. If we can clarify it in the subdivision rules and regulations, then I think that helps people, everybody down the line.
And I think that's what we're trying to do, is provide clarification here. I wouldn't say that it means that the driveway permit should be thrown out. I think there's still reasons for why we'd want to have the driveway permit, but what we're trying to do is kind of clarify a little bit more with regard to the subdivision rules and regs. Okay, so it is important where the driveways go. Just right now, you guys don't feel that you have a legal stance to actually. Correct. And just so you know, this also, the subdivision rules and regs, they are a working document. We try to look at them every couple of years and make sure we are updating them appropriately and keeping up with either current engineering standards or just, current design requirements. So, this is, something we're proposing now. It doesn't mean, several years down the road, something couldn't change or something like that. But that's exactly what you just said. Liz is correct. We're trying to clarify it within the subdivision rules and regs, kind of moving forward. Okay, thank you.
I'd also like to add that over the years, we've definitely got bit by legalese. How a lawyer interprets something, and then we have to go back and change what we thought was perfectly fine. Because some other precedent was set. Once lawyers get involved, it gets screwy. So we think we had a perfectly fine situation, but then we don't. So then we have to go in and kind of like a back and forth battle.
And I think this is one of the first times I've seen the driveway permit, in this case, be interpreted as a suggestion and not a binding document. So,
I mean, that was new to me too. I mean, so.
So I think, tightening that up to make it, if they show a driveway plan, that's what actually gets built is, maybe a separate piece of all of this. But, it's the only permit that I've ever seen which is not binding on the applicant. So.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to see if we can address this through the subdivision rules and regs.
Yeah.
As best we can. Okay, let's go down to the next one. I think we can.
I do want to go back. It looks like our DPW director is noting that perhaps our last edit here should, instead of saying driveway entrances, be the edge of pavements.
That's fine. That's even more clear. Yep. Yes, thank you for that.
Take that suggestion, Randy. Thank you. All right, let me see where the next one is.
Actually, I have a question on that wording then. I thought what we were talking about was from the pavement to the edge of the town right of way. We want that part of the driveway shown.
Yes,
so I'm not sure. Randy,
So wouldn't
when
it
you
just
say
be
it should be to edge of proposed pavement, not the edge of the right of way. So what are we showing if we're just showing from the pavement to the edge of the pavement?
I guess maybe I was thinking it was from the edge of the proposed pavement from the main road to the right of way.
To the edge of the right of way, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and although, and Randy is saying driveway entrance to edge of proposed pavement, not the edge of right of way, so I'm.
All right, so maybe Randy, you're not, I guess what we're looking for is that small little section of driveway that's within the right of way up to the main road. That's what we're looking to include within the subdivision rules and regs, not beyond the right of way.
Not beyond, okay, I misinterpreted it. I went the other way. I went from,
Okay, yeah.
say from the dwelling to the right of way. So
Yeah, no, this
Covered
is,
by the driveway permit itself.
Okay. All right, thank you for the clarification.
sure.
All right. So then we have a little bit more on shade trees.
Yeah, I think
and their installation.
Yeah, we were just adding that they should be native species within the right of way. And we decided to increase the diameter of them a little bit, just seeing some of the recent ones and thinking that a larger diameter might actually survive a little bit better.
That's right. Okay. And then a discussion of gravel borrow. So Erica put in a note, are we requiring 24 inches of gravel base?
No. No. I mean, I think what we want to do is we want to comply with the MassDOT standards. I don't know. I think that was a comment that was submitted when the first round kind of came out by, I don't know if it was a resident or someone from the town, but to require 24 inches of gravel burrow is complete overkill unless it's needed. I mean, certainly if there are site constraints that would require it, it would make sense. But I think, just asking for them to comply with the MassDOT standards should be sufficient.
It was a resident who brought it up.
That's what I thought I remembered. Yeah.
And then language added in regarding curbing.
Yes, and I think that. Oh, go ahead.
Requiring curbing where lid techniques are going to be installed, are not requiring curbing at those locations. So allowing more of the country drainage where it applies.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of one of the biggest things was we wanted to do is if there's sheet flowing, like if runoff is sheet flowing now, we certainly, and it's still able to sheet flow, we certainly don't want to, have curbing required. We want to still allow them to continue that sheet flow condition. It's more of a low impact development technique and works well as long as they can still treat stuff. And then where curbing, where a closed drainage system is required, then it needs to be curbed.
All right. And then revising the minimum sidewalk width, so it's increased, so it's aligned with recommendations of the MAB and MassDOT.
Yes, we went, it was originally all 4 feet, but it's to be compliant with ADA when you have, unless you have really a straight section, it's as soon as you have changes in either direction or anything like that, it becomes very difficult to make that ADA compliant when you are just 4 feet. As long as you do like a minimum of 5 feet, usually you can be compliant with ADA a lot easier. I won't say pretty easy, but just it becomes a lot easier. So yes, this change was to become more in line with ADA and MAAB standards.
Moving
Danielle, this is Liz. Can I just make a comment about the sidewalk? Sorry.
Sure.
Here's sort of, just because I'm living it right now, this is sort of my thought on this. So I think is the right of way 10 feet? It's 10 feet, I think. So I'm wondering if and I agree, the sidewalk should be 5 feet wide. I think that's perfect. But above, when we talk about the trees, which we kind of already passed through, there's a statement that the trees need to be put into the tree belt. So the tree belt is really going to be max 5 feet, right? So we're putting these trees in a space that's really pretty
Tough for them to.
Yeah.
I see what
So,
you're saying.
I mean, totally up to your guys' discretion. But when I lived in a neighborhood growing up where the trees completely destroyed all the sidewalks, like they planted actually similar sugar maples to what we have in our neighborhood. Ours are not in the tree belt, but it completely destroyed the sidewalks. So I just think logically, what sort of would make sense to me and is putting the sidewalk directly in line with the curb, kind of like what they've done in some of the Hudson developments recently.
Mhm.
You have a 5-foot right of way on the other side of that, and you could literally put the tree on the edge of that right of way, and it would give it a lot more room. Just a suggestion, but
That's actually what has been brought up before too, as well. So you're not the first person to bring this up, and it does bring up a good point, because to try to fit trees within a 5-foot space is difficult. It's definitely difficult, especially once they get bigger and the roots start really growing under the sidewalk and stuff.
And I'll just add that when you're talking native trees, the native around here are oaks and maples, and those get massive, right?
Really.
And they grow 30 feet. Their diameters, if you let them go long enough, they could take over that full 5 feet, and the roots will start breaking up the sidewalk, and you have to kill the tree in order to put a sidewalk back down. So just something to consider.
yeah.
Do we give, and Val, you may not know this, but does anyone on the board know, do we give leniency or the ability to place the sidewalk immediately adjacent to the road? Or is it an absolute requirement that there has to be a certain grass strip? And I apologize, I'm just not remembering off the top of my head.
I believe there is some leniency, and I think that I think the way it's written is to provide options for the developer as well, because we want to be able to allow someone some creative options. If there is a buffer, if it's maybe on the other side of a tree.
That's what I was just thinking, because if you put the sidewalk, what Liz just mentioned, if you put the sidewalk immediately adjacent to the road, and then if you still only have 5 feet within the actual public right of way, but maybe it's still grass beyond that. So it actually, if you're planting the trees right at the edge of the right of way, they're going to potentially, they could have, as big of a buffer zone as needed. I just wasn't sure if we had anything in here prohibiting them from switching it.
So the only downsides I can think, the advantage of having the sidewalk away and having the tree close to, in there is kind of a physical reminder to the homeowner that that's not their tree. And it's not free for them to remove if they decide they don't like it. And it's also, pushing the sidewalk right next to the road, in the winter, that's where you're going to get, snow pile up from plowing. So it makes this whereas instead of having a 5-foot buffer for the plows, to pile the snow in. So just a couple, just a kind of an alternate.
Some nuance there.
Just to kind of throw back at that though, I completely agree with you, Mark, but I know for us, we do have a buffer, and this winter there was 0 chance of anybody being able to plow, shovel, anything. We tried our tractor to clear the sidewalks, and even though they're that far in, it's just oftentimes if we have big snows, it's too much. So I wouldn't consider that necessarily, but I do agree. It probably depends on location too, because I wouldn't want my kids walking down a sidewalk right next to the road if it was a fairly major route. Like our road is pretty small, so nobody's flying up and down it all the time. But like, I wouldn't be comfortable with my kids walking down 85 with a sidewalk right next to 85.
Yeah.
So,
and I think so. Just these are subdivision rules and regs, so these are meant for residential areas. So you bring up a very good point. For roadway design, for heavy traffic, we certainly would want that. You'd absolutely want more of a physical barrier between, pedestrian walking, if feasible, and the edge of the road. But for subdivisions, I would think it would actually be okay, because you're going to be pretty low in traffic for the most part. I know that we do still have some large subdivisions that could have more.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, it's good for the board to come out with, with a standard, and then because it's rules and regs, we have the ability to, to waive things, to alter to an extent, just so that we're actually, thinking about the subdivision in front of us, and really thinking more thoughtfully about this particular location, this particular site, what is really going to be the best for the residents there.
Okay. All right. No, I think that's good. So it sounds like most people are still good with the 5 feet wide, and that there is potentially some leniency for exactly where the location of that could be done. And maybe it's just, as subdivisions kind of come in front of us as a board, need to really kind of review where those trees really are being planted kind of within that area.
So moving along to the other edits about sidewalks and walkways. So this is adding the option of 6-inch cement concrete.
So this was talked about previously on the board for quite a while. I know that it's always been a standard to have bituminous, but there's 2 things that I think us as a board have really kind of felt should be pushed, and one is vertical granite curb. If curbing is required, it really should be vertical granite curbing. The bituminous curbing has a lot of maintenance issues, and just there's a lot of headaches associated with it, and we didn't necessarily want to come out and require concrete sidewalks, but at least provide an option for the developer. They're a lot easier to maintain. So this was to try to provide some ability for them to consider it.
I actually had a question on section E here. It says bicycle paths shall be constructed to a minimum width of 10 feet. Is that, when we say path, is that a shared use or multi-use path? Or
it's basically a shared use path. So the minimum requirement for a bicycle, in order to have two-way bicycle path, it has to be 10 feet. So but you could also call it a shared use path. It just means as soon as you have bicycles on a pathway and you're, publicly allowing bicycles to be on there, it should be 10 feet.
So just to throw a monkey wrench in our curbing discussion, we don't want to allow the Cape Cod berms. Do we want to allow a vertical cement concrete berm?
Honestly, I would keep it vertical granite curb.
Okay.
I mean, and Valerie, maybe you can answer this if they want to. I mean, that's the stuff that's going to last the longest, and it's going to maintain. It's just not to say that you can't do concrete. You could. And if, I guess, can they ask for a waiver for substitutive materials? They could. Okay.
Yes, they can. Yeah.
So Mark, if that really was like a sticking point of cost or something, then I think at that time we could look at it, the site specific area, and see whether it was worth allowing.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the development I grew up in had cement, and 60 years after it was built, they're still in perfectly good shape. So I'm not sure that they have.
We do have a comment from Randy who says that he does not recommend concrete curbing. So it's not recommended, but I guess we would consider it on a case-by-case basis as a waiver.
Okay.
I would say if salt hits it, it's going to destroy it. So I don't think a concrete curbing is good. I agree with granite. And just for where it says bituminous pavement, sidewalk, and then the bituminous afterward, should that be struck as well?
No, so what it says is, it says pavement for sidewalk can be either bituminous pavement of 2 inches
Gotcha.
or 6-inch cement concrete.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other comment there?
I think we're good.
And
Not
then
hearing any.
I think the rest of it was non-substantive. I think it was simply a.
Okay. Oh, looks like that may be it.
This next one. Yeah, it was just
Oh,
changing.
just- yeah.
how we labeled it. All right.
So do we need to make a motion to approve these changes?
Yes, we should.
All right. Does anyone from the board want to entertain a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we accept the changes in the subdivision rules and regs that we've just reviewed.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. And then Valerie, if you want to do a roll call for all those in favor? I think your volume went out, sorry.
All right. Peter Driscoll,
Aye.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Daniel Spicer,
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Right, passes unanimously.
Okay.
So let's jump on, we're a little bit behind, but let's see if we can jump onto the Bolton Design Review Board rules and regs.
Right. So some of these are also non-substantive, so changing, ZBA versus Board of Appeals, altering language so that applications go to the town planner rather than the town clerk. We did add industrial to the list of types of developments that could, that the planning board could trigger for DRB review. And let's see. And then a little bit more about process. So making sure that once the applicant gets the recommendations from the DRB, that there is then another meeting between the planning board or the Board of Selectmen and the DRB. And then we added a major renovation to the application to say that, it's applicable when renovation costs are 50% or more. And then essentially this section here, that was the section laying out design review criteria, that's part of the zoning bylaw, was then taken out of the rules and regs simply for clarity because it was essentially duplicating.
That's exactly great. Yep. I think that was it.
Yeah, I believe that's
So
it.
I believe Michelle Tuck, you are, I think, on here. You had some additional comments to kind of go over. Do you want to go over your comments?
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I haven't seen some of you in a long time. Yeah, so I'm not sure where my comments fall here because they're not, I'm not sure if it's possible to make these changes still or if that ship has sailed already. But the couple of comments, so some of them have been incorporated already. The wording of industrial as added to one of the types of developments to trigger the design review board, that was already added, as you can see. Also that major renovation clause. And we see that in other towns where if you're doing more than 50% construction cost based on the tax assessed value of the building, then X, Y, and Z get triggered. So when looking back, how long has the DRB been instituted? It's what, 9 years old or 8 years old or something like that. So looking at all the times that we've been triggered, we there have been a few projects that we didn't necessarily have to have the project come in front of us, but they did out of courtesy. So we just want to catch that so that projects come in front of us regardless of courtesy. That's one piece of and that's been incorporated. So that's great. Another concern that I've had through the years is enforcement. When we set up the design review board that long ago, we considered it that this would be a little bit of trial and error, and we would need to modify wording to make sure that it's working right for us. So this is kind of our opportunity now, even though it's been a while. And we have gotten triggered every time we expect to. I'm happy to say that. But I'm always concerned that we may not get triggered at some point. Either somebody forgets to invoke us in the process, or it's determined by someone else that, oh, this is minor enough that maybe we don't need design review board. And I think we as a board would rather have be invoked and then make that decision ourselves. So we want to just kind of make sure that we're getting called on whenever we're needed. So I was advocating for a checkbox on the building permit as well. So, you know, they have to check that little box saying that you've gone to Conservation Commission, or maybe you don't need to, and you've gone to Planning Board, or you don't need to. So that was something I've been advocating for a while. I'm not sure that I don't think that this is the right venue for that, and I'm not sure how to get us in there, but that would be one of my hopes. Another is we spend time with the applicant, but we are not a board with a lot of strength at the moment. So we put a list of requests or recommendations in, and we don't have the strength to enforce it. After they have come to us, we usually encourage them to make revisions and come back. Now, a lot of times that doesn't happen, partly because usually they're 40Bs and the project falls apart, or something else happens that they don't actually implement it. But in some cases, like at the Clinton Savings Bank, they did come back to us and we had a couple more revisions, and that was a good process. But at the point at which they then go back to the planning board, they report that they've come to us. We send the planning board a list of our recommendations, and then we lose control at that point. I would like to see them come back to us for a final approval, and then that approval gets communicated to the planning board. For instance, we've had some, well, let me continue there for a minute, because I'd like to get their drawings to the point where those comments have been incorporated before the planning board approves it, or before we approve it, whatever approval authority is appropriate there. As it stands now, we make recommendations and have no ability to review the revised drawings. Usually it's out of our hands at that point and goes to the planning board. And I know we have a lot of advocates on the planning board. Thank you very much. But sometimes it can feel like if we were a part of that process, then we could continue advocating through the approvals. So I think that that's where the discussion comes up of a potential joint meeting, so that we can continue our participation.
Sure. So Michelle, if you actually, Bella, if you can scroll down a little bit, it was at, so number 6 is basically what was added. And that was, I think the intent was to try to do exactly what you're talking about, but not necessarily have the DRB approve stuff, because you're adding potentially another approval from a different board, but to require another meeting between either the planning board, DRB, or Board of Selectmen and DRB to kind of come back together again. So the DRB is seeing those final plans, I think that you were just talking about,
Yeah.
and making sure. So I don't know if that fully gets to what you were thinking, but I think that was the intent. But to still try to keep the approvals within the planning board or Board of Selectmen. I think the concerns is just adding another approval process that they have to go through, but also understanding we still want them to loop back around with a DRB. So it's a little bit of a balancing act of trying to make sure that the DRB does get another view, review of it after the changes have been made, and jointly with whichever entity that needs to be with. But maybe the approval still is through the planning board or the Board of Selectmen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I can see where that can go wrong. But I'm not sure if I can make a suggestion on how to prevent that. So worst case, we have a series of meetings with a developer, and there are several go-arounds. The developer makes revisions, right? And we've been working through for a while, and we get it mostly done. Then the developer makes their final revisions, schedules the hearing, the joint hearing with planning board and the design review board, and makes that presentation. And then somebody on the planning board decides they want to see something different, or somebody that in the public that has come for something else decides they want to see something different. Like, I don't know if that then derails our process if we loop in another group at the end, or maybe it will, and we just have to deal with it in order to avoid an additional approval process.
Well, I don't think it was looping at the end. I think the process that we were thinking is obviously you meet with DRB first. Usually that's where, you meet with DRB first, then they come to the planning board. DRB would give the planning board, continue to give their recommendations of what they, went through. The planning board kind of goes over that, reviews it. But before the hearing is closed, there'd be potentially another meeting with seeing plans. I guess I'm just trying to logistically think about this as well.
Hey, Danielle,
Yeah.
So we talked about this with Michelle, like a year ago or so. And I agree with what you were saying earlier, that we don't necessarily want an entire separate approval, but I definitely think that, like we talked about, a joint meeting at the end where DRB definitely would be included in the final say, so like Michelle, your concern is, things get changed for whatever reason. I mean, you would be at a joint meeting with the planning board and have, your final say in there. I think the intent was to tie you in at the end of the process, so you're, what you intended was still there and it wasn't washed away somehow, but also not to have a whole separate process. And I think I said this last time is, like the planning board's elected, so I'd hate to have like an appointed board or something hold up a project, but I mean, I think definitely you should be included for sure, and I think the joint meeting is a good way, so we'd have an 8-person vote or something towards the end there, where your vote would be included and your final say would be there.
So maybe a way to so maybe we can get around my potential concerns by just kind of finishing our review process within the DRB before we come to the planning board. So we're not seeing anything new at the time of the planning board hearing. We have met enough times or gotten revisions to our satisfaction, and then we come to the planning board not seeing anything new for the first time, right?
So I think we would probably have the hearing open at the same time logistically, but we could say something like we wouldn't close the hearing until your process is complete.
I think that sounds good. I mean, we've only had usually one visit with each developer. And that's part of my concern is we don't get to see the revised drawings. They go to planning board. So if we keep that process within our group through the revisions, then I'm not so concerned about it because I know that they've revised X, Y, and Z to our satisfaction. Then it can come to the planning board all polished up and ready for approval, and we aren't seeing anything new, and you guys are seeing it all. But I think, Danielle, I think you've probably felt the same thing, that we give a list of recommendations and don't get
anything back.
feedback. We don't know if they're
Yeah.
doing it. So I think maybe that's the DRB's responsibility to close that loop before they come to the planning board for that final visit, because then we're not seeing anything new. We're just sitting there saying, yep, looks good. They did what we were recommending. We're happy with it.
So would it make sense to modify number 6 and just to say, once the applicant integrates the recommendations set forth in the DRB's written report, final plans shall be resubmitted to the DRB and a follow-up or in a, I mean, we can still keep the part about the meeting. I think that's fine to keep that in there. It's always nice to have that joint meeting, but we could say, final plans, shall be submitted to the DRB for a final recommendation letter.
Or just like the final plan should include the final agreed upon recommendations from the.
I want to, I mean, I don't want to say they have to, so this is where it's a little tricky.
Right.
You want to just say final plan shall be submitted to DRB based on the recommendations made, and then subsequently DRB is going to write the letter to the planning board saying, okay, this is where we are.
Agreed.
So I think we could revise number 6. And maybe it's actually putting, maybe between 5 and 6, it's actually putting in, maybe it's a separate line item and just saying, the applicant shall incorporate the recommendations. I wouldn't say shall, because that's going to say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The applicant, oh goodness, yeah. There might be some wordsmithing here. So I think maybe this, we might not want to vote on this tonight. I think we might want to just take a little bit of time. Maybe Valerie, if we can kind of put something together and we can relook at this. Do we want to, relook at this maybe, at another meeting to kind of vote on, or is that screwing up the whole schedule?
No, that'd be fine. We can, so this is a public hearing, so we can just continue the public hearing to another date, and continue to revise in the meantime.
Yeah, why don't we do that, Michelle? What we can do is, in the meantime, we can add that second line item, which I think will get at what you're trying to do. And then let's continue this. It doesn't matter to me if it's the 28th or if it's whatever.
Can I ask something before we continue?
Yeah.
We moved a bunch of the lighting details to rules and regs somewhere. Where is that going? We took it out of the bylaw, like, all the a lot of the specs, and we were going to put it in rules and regs. Does that go this rules and reg, or is it its own rules and regs for lighting, or where exactly does that go?
So we had, oh, you're talking about like the photometrics plan and all that type of stuff that we took out?
Yes.
That's a good question. We took it out, so it wasn't going to be in the lighting bylaw.
But it had, but the intent was for it to put in the rules and regs somewhere. So
yes.
Where does that go?
I think that's a separate set of rules and regs.
Yes.
And technically, I'm not sure that we can publish those until the bylaw has been adopted at town meeting.
Okay. I think you're right. I think you're right, Mark.
So with something to the effect of adding in a line that would be that the applicant must submit the final plan to DRB with sufficient time for DRB to review prior to joint meeting, something to that effect, just so that you do see the final.
Yes.
Their final plan, whether they've incorporated your requests or not, and then it comes to the joint meeting, and then we work on it from there. but it means you're not being blindsided at the joint meeting. And it also doesn't set up a kind of a roadblock in the way of
Yes.
If you and the developer just can't come to agreement on something, they'll submit their final proposal and then we can hash it out at the joint meeting.
Yeah, yes, I think that's the right intent, and I appreciate that additional line item or however it gets written in there, because 9 times out of 10, actually probably 10 out of 10, I think, they've, in the end, they've been happy they've come through the process. And a lot of our recommendations were incorporated, but it's those couple that we didn't know if we could keep in there or not. So yeah, I think adding that line item is very helpful, and I'm happy to help wordsmith that between this and the next meeting.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Okay, so does anyone want to entertain a motion to continue this? Valerie, do we want to continue it to the 28th?
That's up. I think that's up to the board with how you want to schedule things. So we have a barn bylaw special permit public hearing at 7, and then now we have possibly that last special permits for 8 p.m. on the 28th. So I don't know how the board feels about scheduling multiple hearings in one night. So it's up to
I mean, I think this one's going to be pretty quick when we meet for the next hearing. So let's just schedule it for 8:30, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, I'll move that we continue this to April 28th at 8:30.
Second.
All right, and Valerie, you can do a roll call for all those in favor.
Driscoll,
Aye, if that was me.
sorry, is my thing going out a little bit again?
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Sorry. Michael Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nylands,
Aye.
Daniel Spicer,
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Great, passes unanimously. All right. Okay, so let's jump on to the next one. We're definitely behind here. So
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, Michelle. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 87, Public Shade Tree Law, Section 3, and Chapter 40, Section 15C, Scenic Road, and Section 250-24, the Bolton zoning bylaws. The Town of Bolton Tree Warden and Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 14th at 8:30 regarding an application from Bolton's Department of Public Works to remove 7 public shade trees from Spectacle Hill Road. These trees are located in the vicinity of number 5 and number 12 Spectacle Hill Road on both sides of the road to facilitate a drainage improvement project. The trees are identified as follows. Abutting 5 Spectacle Hill Road, there's one 34-inch oak, one 35-inch white pine, one 34-inch white pine. And abutting 12 Spectacle Hill Road, one 18-inch diameter and 17-inch diameter oak, a 34-inch white pine, and a 28-inch oak, and a 32-inch pine. All right, so do we have anyone here for the shade tree?
Why don't you share
Randy
your
and
screen?
Daniel.
Hi, Randy Hegland and Frank from Dillis and Roy.
Mark Case, the Bolton Tree Warden.
Great.
All right. This project, I think, is everybody may be aware of. It's Spectacle Hill and South Bolton Road drainage improvements. It's an area of town that has seen periodic flooding from time to time across Spectacle Hill Road. A couple of years ago, the town began a design with Dillis and Roy to undertake some drainage improvements on this road to alleviate the flooding that goes across the road. And upon my review of the plans as they were going out for bid, I realized that Spectacle Hill is a scenic road. That's when I discovered too that there were now a total of 7 trees that are affected by the construction. and are to be removed as part of the construction. If I can do a screen share, we'll take a look at the plans and give you an indication of where the trees are, how they're located. See if this works. This is the drainage project. Trying to get to the next page. I did highlight for the board, and I think Valerie did send a copy of this with your package, kind of highlighting the area that these trees are located. Apologize for the awkwardness here.
That's okay. We can see the plan.
Okay. This South Bolton Road is on your left-hand side of the road. This is Spectacle Hill. Century Mill Estates is to the right. There's this cluster of trees right in this area here that are being removed as part of this project, or proposed to be removed as part of this project. If I go to the next page, explains a little bit about the design. Best, probably Frank is probably the best to describe the design. I do have some pictures that I can show you of the affected trees. I don't know, Frank, do you want to cut in here?
Certainly, Randy. Actually, if I may jump in and share my screen myself. Randy, if you stop sharing, I can jump in.
I did.
Thank you very much. So what I'm showing here is the grading plan view for this project, for this area, the cluster of trees here and here. The trees on the 12 Spectacle Hill roadside are directly within a proposed roadside swale, which will convey runoff down to a catch basin across the street, and then to through a drainage easement to a stormwater discharge, and eventually into the border, the wetland in this area. So the trees on the 12 side are directly in the way of the construction of that swale. The trees on the 5 Spectacle Hill Road side are going to be impacted by the roadway construction itself. One of the things that we're doing in this area from Spectacle Hill Road all the way down to Century Mill is, if you look at the profile here, we're picking the road up about a foot, the centerline road elevation of the road. That's in part to get it up out of, to prevent it from being flooded over, as well as to provide cover over the proposed replacement culverts down by Century Mill Road. So the roadway construction would significantly impact the root structure of the trees on the 5 Spectacle Hill Road side. And while they're not directly in the way, it would impact their health and lead to essentially kill them.
Does anyone have any questions on the board? Not hearing any. Any questions from the public?
Hi, yes, this is Gavin Robinson from 328 South Bolton Road. Question: when this would take place, would this be concurrent with the drainage project or done ahead of time?
That would be concurrent. The drainage project was just out to bid. We're reviewing a potential apparent low bidder So we're looking at having the project done by the middle of the summer. So this is rapid.
Okay, and just a note, the drainage, and I don't know if the neighbors agree, but the drainage does seem to have improved. There hasn't been as much flooding more recently. I think Century Mill Estates was asked to do some cleanup on their side, and it seems to have alleviated quite a bit of the pooling of the water there more recently.
Okay, thank you.
This is Bob Tattersall. I live on South Bolton Road also, and I'm part of the historic district or the historic commission. One thing that I was surprised wasn't covered here also with regard to the scenic road. It's supposed to cover destruction of stone walls also, which there appears in this picture to be some of. Was that going to be addressed at a different time? And just of note, you know, this is like one of our earliest roads, and there's actually a stone in there that has a date in it of 1787. And we certainly want to see as much of that preserved as possible. So if somebody could speak to what's going to go on with the stone walls, if it's not inappropriate, I'd appreciate hearing about it. Maybe Dillis, who just put up the picture here? Maybe he can, is it Francis? Is that, can you
yes,
speak at all to what's going on with the stone walls?
I'm going to be evaluating the design with respect to the stone walls.
Okay.
And trying to mitigate as much of that impact as possible over the next few days, and then I'll be in discussions with Randall about that.
Okay. Will there be other public meetings or something that if
we have to do something within the statutes, then yes, we will end up having another public meeting about that.
Okay. It definitely seems like it is, because it does say destruction of stone wall. So on it. So, okay.
Yeah, it is. And my goal is to avoid doing any damage to the wall. If we can keep between all our work with between the walls and adjust the swale on the number 12 side of Spectral Hill without disturbing the wall, that would be my goal. I prefer not to, because I did see that one stone with the date on it. I did see that, and that would be my goal, is to try and avoid that wall in its entirety.
Okay. All right. We'll be watching for future input on that. Thank you.
Hi, this is Stan Smith at 5 Spectacle Hill. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. The current plan doesn't show the existing drain line that we allowed to go in about 20 years ago or so. And in an attempt to help identify the cause of the continued flooding, I dug up the end of the pipe that's on my property and found a very large rock that was placed there by the people that put the pipe in. And I suspect that what they were trying to do was to limit the flow rate through the pipe, possibly because we had talked to them about erosion of the land and stuff like that. I'm not sure. But anyway, I took that stone out and contacted DPW and told them what I found and everything. That could have some impact as to why you haven't seen flooding, but I'm not sure.
Well, this is Margaret Campbell, also from 5 Spectacle Hill Road. And definitely the flooding has been reduced. It may be because the pipe is able to carry more flow now with the stone removed, but I think Century Mill repairing the detention basin up on their property, which is, the requirement of our code is that the discharge off of the Century Mill Estates not exceed what it was prior to the construction. And that detention pond was not operating properly for a number of years. Um, So I am wondering, is it necessary for, is the whole process necessary, given that the water or the flooding has been now minimized?
This is Gavin. I
Another-
have to agree with Stan, Margaret, on that. It has been minimized quite a bit. Sorry, Margaret.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that it's been minimized. So I'm wondering about the need to spend all this money to do this. I'm greatly concerned about, oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Stan and Margaret, would you perhaps be able to point out on my plan where that pipe comes out? Is it near one of the wetland flags?
Yeah.
Approximate?
So go back to the other plan that you had,
Yes.
the previous page. Okay. So where you have the line going down onto our property.
This.
And, yep.
Right there at the.
Right there. So the line that originally was there that you are replacing, and we were first told that this was going to be just a replacement of what was there, which is not what this is. But the line that is there goes, if you go towards Spectacle Hill Road following this line, and then you go straight across over to the existing drainage
Not that
basin.
way.
No, that doesn't exist, right? No, that
You're
doesn't.
correct. Yes. So something this way?
So
No,
do
no,
you
it
know?
goes diagonally across the road. If
So-
you continue the line that's on our property, if you just follow that straight and go to the other side of Spectacle Hill. No, not that way.
No. Okay.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. Straight across.
Follow the line.
Francis.
Yes.
Francis, go to the pipe that you're installing on my property.
Yes.
Okay. Follow that pipe all the way up to the north to, what is it, manhole number 1? or something?
EMH1. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, there is an existing basin across the street to the
North.
north of, or to the left-hand side of the driveway across the street, where
It's right
you're
by that
putting-
beehive.
where you're
It's,
putting a
it's,
beehive.
it's in the vicinity of that beehive.
They're right there.
This one?
If you go,
Okay.
if you go to the
There
previous,
is a
it shows
pipe.
it.
That runs, there is a pipe right now that runs from there all the way underneath Spectacle Hill Road and is in the location where you're planning on putting the new pipe.
So
Right.
something like that.
That's right.
Yes.
And it's a,
And-
I believe it's a 10 or 12 inch corrugated pipe.
It's a 12-inch line. And, you know, this is what number one concern is that, again, we were originally told that it was going to be just replacing that line. And that's not at all what's happening here. So if you do just replace this line, you don't impact our stone wall. If you do it the way you're talking about, which is going straight across, perpendicularly across Spectacle Hill Road, perpendicular to the flow of traffic, you have to go through our stone wall. And I've also been told that you would rebuild it, but you know, I don't see why you necessarily need to do that. Again, the plan was, as I was told, was to just replace that pipe. And I think that there's a good chance that if you do just replace that pipe, or maybe, I don't think that that's actually even necessary, but that we can manage the flow now, as long as Century Mill meets their requirements, Century Mill Estates meets their requirements and keeps the water generated from their clearing on the site, on their site.
Danielle, can I say something?
Yeah.
First of all, it's been a fairly dry spring, so I'm not sure how much a few months of
No, this isn't a
months
few
of being
months.
dry.
This
But
was,
also I think the scope of this hearing was for the trees. I mean, was voted. I mean, I don't think we were here to judge if the project should be done or not. I think it's already gone through town meeting and money was allocated for it. I think like this meeting was for the shade tree. I mean, if we're going to get into the, if we should have this project done or not, I don't know. That's really part of
No,
the
I think
agenda.
you're right, Eric. I mean, really, the hearing here tonight is for the removal of the 7 public shade trees within the right of way.
okay, so let me go on to that. I do want to correct one thing, though, that the experience is not just this last spring. We could immediately see the change once Century Mill Estate repaired the drainage. So it's not just the last month or two.
I would also like to
Get
say,
the shade
I think we have the DPW director here. So, I mean, if we didn't need to spend the money, sure, I'd be all for that. I just don't know that if, that's what this particular hearing is for. But I don't know if the DPW director wants to say something on that, but.
Well, I can tell you, I've lived here for 30 plus years. I've been watching this flooding happening since the day we moved in. And yes, it did get worse with Century Mill Estates going in, and there's no doubt in my mind that construction caused the problem, and their repair of that drainage ditch also relieved the problem. What I can say about the shade trees is that this is a scenic road, as was already stated. It's one of the oldest roads in the town, and these large pine trees and oak trees that are being removed, I don't know how long ago they were planted, but they were, intentionally planted along the road. There had been more of them. A couple of them have come down in storms. I don't want to see the trees taken down. I like the trees. I like the shade that they provide to the road. I like the fact that the trees actually narrow the road. Cars travel too fast down Spectacle Hill Road and South Bolton Road. And having a narrowing of the roadway actually visually assists in slowing traffic. I would say that we don't need to elevate the road and that you don't need the swale. The water currently does run down the road, and as it has for the decades that I've lived here. I think we need to repair the culvert that is closer to the Century Mill Estates driveway so that is providing some additional movement of flow of runoff. But I don't think that we need to dig out along the side of the road. It's pretty flat there. I don't think anybody has been concerned about driving through the rainwater that's on the road, and it flows down the road. It's the ponding at the end of my driveway that is the issue, and the swale along the side of the road is not going to impact the drainage of the ponding of water at the end of the driveway. I don't want to see those trees taken down. I don't want to see the swales installed and the road elevated and the road then widened.
Is the DPW director still on? Randy,
Yeah.
can you speak to this?
I'll be honest, I've been with the town 5 months, on Friday, actually. I don't know a lot of the history of this road. I heard anecdotally about this road is flooded, almost annually. created problems both in the winter with icing and things of that nature. I understand there was at one point, there was about 18 inches of water going across the road in the vicinity of Ms. Campbell's driveway. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant, I think, public safety concern. You know, for emergency vehicles to get through that kind of water, you know, police vehicles especially, or ambulances, lower clearance type vehicles. You know, again, I don't know all of the history. Again, what I've heard is anecdotal. I mean, the folks on the board here may be more aware of more of the history. And I think it goes back to the gentleman saying that, you know, this has been an unusually dry spring. And I think last winter as well, I think was a kind of a light snow. We didn't have a lot of lot of melt. The melt happened early. It was a drier spring too. So I don't know. All I can say is I think this project has been ongoing for maybe 2 years, something like that. And it was obviously something prompted. The Felton town had the necessity and the need to do this project. They've, as was mentioned, they've appropriated the money. We do have grant money that we applied for, and we're successful in receiving $100,000. And that's actually what's driving our schedule. That money is right now supposed to be spent by the end of June, or we lose that $100,000. So, you know, I don't necessarily want to have the dollars, the grant govern the project, but I think the town wouldn't have expended the funds to get to this point if there was not a recognized need in the past.
Right. I mean, that was kind of my point. I mean, the merits of the project have already been determined. It went through advisory very heavily, and it went through town meeting. So, I mean, we could, you know, as you said, discuss the shade trees, but I mean, I guess the shade trees is all tied into the whole project, because if we deny the shade trees, then the project doesn't really work.
You can't build, yeah, if you can't, my guess is if you don't allow the removal of the trees, you can't construct all the drainage components that are alongside of these both sides of the road. And just to add on to that, I appreciate everyone's input with regard to the fact that this area might actually not be seeing as much flooding as it has in the past. That's actually very good news. I will say you don't want to take a snippet in time though, when we're looking at stormwater and drainage improvements and how to mitigate stormwater. Really want to look at a much larger time period and time frame, and understanding, what Randall just mentioned with regard to public safety and keeping the water off the road. I think it is important that we're looking at where drainage improvements can be done. Maybe this year isn't going to be that heavy, and we're not going to see that many rains, but the climate is going to an area where it is going to increase, and so potentially looking at a larger time frame I think is more beneficial with regard to stormwater mitigation.
This is Gavin Robinson. I'd like to add that, yeah, I mean, as Randall noted, he's only been here for 5 months, so he's fairly new to this area and what's going on. But I would also ask, has the Conservation Committee actually reviewed the removal of the trees?
The Conservation Commission has issued a notice of intent for the project, and the tree removal was on there.
So there is an order of conditions for this.
The project does have an order of conditions, yes.
Okay.
This is Gardner Peters with 12 Spectacle Hill Road. So 4 of the trees are right in front of our house. One of them, the one handiest or closest to our driveway, is rotted. And I've had a concern that one was going to come down in a storm. So I would love to see that tree removed. The other trees, I don't like to see them cut down, but I don't have a huge problem with it. But I do have a big issue with the stone wall that's in front of our home. That's where the rock that has 1741 on it. There's also another stone that has some other inscriptions on it. So I would be very concerned that the wall not be disturbed as part of the project. And a question I have for people on the board, if we're going to raise the road a foot, is that going to cause, are we going to raise the driveway entrances? How is that going to work? Because we already have issues with the water puddling at the end of our driveway. Again, that was driven. We never had these problems before the development went in, Century Mills. So I just have a concern. I wouldn't want to see the road go up and then have the water flow worse into our driveway than it is now. So I was wondering if you could just kind of explain to me how that is going to look when you're complete.
So one thing that the swales are going to do on your side is help convey the runoff laterally along the direction of the road. So there won't be an opportunity for water to build up on either side, because there will be a pipe on under your driveway where the road has been built up, and then it'll flow down to the Beehive catch basin at your neighbor's property at 6 Spectacle Hill.
Okay.
All right, so we're definitely a little bit over here.
So this is Margaret Campbell again. I would just like to say that if these trees are removed, I would like to ask the planning board to look at some means of doing essentially traffic calming in this area, so that cars are slowed, so that the speed of vehicles are slowed. You know, I would like to suggest a table style speed bump, similar to what was installed over in Berlin.
So I did, Valerie, maybe you can answer this. With this being a scenic road hearing for public shade trees, I think the only thing on the table is the removal of the trees. Is the introduction of new measures for this project. Can you confirm whether that would be allowed or not?
The point of the connection, though, is that the shade trees are, you know, because they visually make the road appear a little bit narrower, and they will be eliminated. That's the point. That's
no, I understand the point. I'm just trying to understand. I don't think we have the purview to require that under this hearing currently. But Valerie, if you could please confirm that.
Yes, so this type of permit is new to me. I will just put that out there as a caveat. But looking at the bylaw, it's very bare. It's really just looking at trees over 1.5 inches in diameter and the removal of stone walls. And so what comes out of this public hearing is essentially an agreement between the planning board and the contractor over what is to be removed. So it, you know, I haven't seen language on mitigation measures. I would hope that, that there are other ways for residents to, comment on traffic concerns in their neighborhood. I'm wondering if that could be an open conversation, outside of this project.
This is Mark Case, the Bolton Tree Warden. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I've been the tree warden in town since 1992. Many times we've approved or disapproved the removal of public shade trees. In some cases, the project never even took place. So once again, like we've mentioned before, and Eric mentioned, what's on the table in front of us tonight is the approval or non-approval of the removal of these 7 trees. Moving forward, that's other public hearings. I was under the impression that the walls on both sides of the road were not going to be disturbed, that all the work was taking place within the existing roadway. The road level was going to be coming up, and that's one, and creation of the swale on 12 Spectacle Hill side. That's why we added the additional number 7 tree, which was that 28-inch oak, because if we get into that root zone at all, that tree is going to tip over and definitely tickle the house at number 12. It's not going to crush the house, but it's within striking distance. So once again, we've approved or not approved trees in the past, and the project sometimes happens and sometimes it doesn't.
This is Will Vancura. I'm at 6 Spectacle Hill. Mark, I sent you an email asking, there's another oak tree that's
Yeah,
on.
it's a maple tree. It's further down the road. I did get that. That's outside of the scope, I believe, of this project, and that the town will take care of that tree with the town tree trimming budget. These tree removals won't be coming out of the town tree trimming budget. This will be coming out of the whole project. The grant project money will cover these removals.
Okay, but just to be sure, we're talking, mine's an oak tree and it's at 6 Spectacle Hill, not the dead one that's further down beyond Gardner's house.
Yes, it's more towards the intersection of South Bolton and Spectacle Hill, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
right where the catch basin
it's-
2 is, in your diagram there, right where catch basin 2, there's a gigantic.
Sorry,
oak tree
it's,
there.
we're really late on time here, so I'd like to just keep this focus on the 7 trees within this
Well,
project.
We started half an hour late, to be fair, and
True, you're right.
so
So also, like, if that tree is completely dead and I did not see or evaluate that tree, if the tree is completely dead, we don't need to hold a hearing for that. If it's a threat to the roadway, the human or vehicular traffic, we can remove that tree without this public hearing.
perfect.
Is the plan to add or replace any of these trees after the work is done?
Not under this contract with the contractor, but I can't speak to future tree plantings.
Was my impression again that with the construction of the swale on the east side, that it wouldn't be proper to be planting trees in that swale, because down the road it would have issues with the flow of the water and everything. So that side of the road wasn't going to have any trees replanted. However, on the west side, that may be a good suggestion.
Madam Chairman, I do have a picture
Go ahead.
that I took today of the roadway, might be helpful
Sure.
to show the trees. Frank, if I can share my screen.
Yes, I will give that back to you.
Okay, this is standing at South Bolton, it's to my back, and I was looking towards the Century Mill. The group of trees on the east side of the road that are going to need to be removed to accommodate that swale are this grouping right here. The other 2 trees on the other side is this oak and this pine, and I think that pine as well. There's 3 trees there. So it kind of gives you a pictorial sense of what we're talking about here. I think it's a refresher for everybody to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that these trees were intentionally planted here.
Yep. Any other comments from the board? Questions?
When is this project slated to, when is the project slated to take off?
Well, it already went out to bid, right?
Went out to bid. Bids were opened actually yesterday. As I mentioned, we're under a time frame for funding, so that's kind of why we're I won't say we're under the gun, but we're kind of pushing the calendar with regard to the funding for the project.
I guess my point is, based on what the planning board has right to do here or not, I mean, we're here to, for the shade tree bylaw, but I think I would suggest to these residents that maybe they talk to Don Lowe and continue talking to the DPW director and maybe get on the agenda of the Board of Selectmen to, whether this project needs to be done or not. I don't know if that's the right approach. I feel like we're going outside of the line currently right now.
Well, I will say that I've spoken with Don Lowe. He's, about this. And for example, he had indicated to me that it was a replacement of that pipe, where Francis wasn't sure where it went. So to me, it's a little disconcerting that the design is being done and we don't know what even exists there. So I will talk with Don Lowe again. And, we had a different DPW director, and I tried to reach him a few times and didn't receive any answer. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't realize that we had a change until just recently. So, yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm just trying to understand if the board's willing to entertain a motion or not.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, now that that's closed, is the planning board want to entertain a motion to remove these trees or not entertain it?
Well, I guess we just closed the hearing, but.
You can't close, you have to make the decision, then close the hearing.
Yeah, it's already closed. So, I was gonna say, should we hold off on a vote? I don't know, but the hearing's closed. I mean, could we hold off on a vote, or, I don't, I'll leave it up to the rest of the board, I guess.
This is a project that has been in the works for years with an intersection that's been problematic for a long time. I mean,
I agree.
I don't understand why we're trying to re-engineer a project here tonight. The board has been asked
to
comment on the removal of trees. I'm in favor of removing these trees because that's what's required to solve the problem at this intersection.
Right. It's not like we're taking trees that won't be affected by the project. I mean, that's kind of what we're judging here. Is like what needs to be taken down for the project. It's kind of what I was getting at before. Yeah. If the project is in question, then I don't think that's part of now.
So do we do this out of order then? I mean,
no, I don't think so.
No,
we always close the hearing first.
Close the hearing first and then do the motion for the removal of trees afterwards. Okay. So does someone want to entertain a motion to remove the trees?
I'll make a motion to remove the trees abutting 5 Spectacle Hill Road and 12 Spectacle Hill Road.
Is there a second?
Second.
Valerie, can you do a roll call for all those in favor?
Aye.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Danielle Spicer,
Aye.
Mark Sprague.
Aye.
Okay. All right, all those pass unanimously.
I would say to the residents, definitely contact Don Lowe, if you want to add more to it. It just wasn't part of our agenda.
All right, so we're gonna, actually, we just closed the hearing, so we're gonna jump on to business. Discussion of driveway permit fee for shared driveways at the Woods at Farm Road. Valerie, I think you had some clarification you were looking for on this, right?
Yes, that's right. And this is because it doesn't come up very often in town hall, but essentially the developer is asking for 4 addresses for 2 shared driveways. And I'm simply asking for a clarification of what the intent of the fee schedule is. The applicant is not asking for any waiver, but I'm just wanting to make sure that we are, abiding by the correct fee schedule. So it was my impression that the board requires $1,000 for a surety, whether it is a single driveway or a shared driveway. So in this case, with 2 shared driveways, it would be a surety of $2,000. Though it's been suggested that perhaps it should be a surety of $4,000, so 1 per home. This is new to me, so I don't know what the what the precedent is here.
And I couldn't recall on previous ones what we had done. I didn't know any of you on the board could remember.
I had taken a look through the minutes. Obviously, this is a ZBA case, but the board did provide just recommendations to have shared driveways. So I didn't get very far there trying to piece together a story. Okay.
I'm hearing crickets. So it may be something we've got to still address. It sounds like there's not a lot of history here. So maybe we can follow up.
And I think if we say, $1,000 per shared driveway, that's what it means, so it'd be 2,000. We don't say $1,000 per
home,
or per address or anything else. So
it would be potentially appropriate just to keep it at the 2,000, which is per driveway.
That's my inclination. I mean, it's really just to make sure that we have a surety for the construction of the road itself, and it's not the case that there are 4.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense that it would be 2,000. I just wanted to, make sure that we weren't, charging someone extra. So that's good clarification. Thank you.
All right. Great, thank you. All right, so we're going to jump on to correspondence. And Valerie, if you want to just review. So I know we received recently, with regard to Moderator Way, a list of concerns from the residents, as well as an email from Liz Hutchins with some additional concerns. And I think you even included on your report that there's definitely a fair amount of stormwater concerns that are kind of going on at Moderator's Way. So I don't know if you want to just give a brief recap there. And then what I was hoping to do is to talk to the board. I think it makes sense to do a site visit out there with and get Niche on board out there to kind of, I'd like to have Niche first review all of these concerns from the residents in the email from Liz, and kind of put together their own punch list. And then once he's kind of got that understanding, we'll meet with we'll meet out on site to kind of review these. And so I was hoping just to also pick everyone's brain for some available times of when we think we could actually meet out on site. But I'll actually let Valerie just give a brief overview.
Oh, great. It's not letting me do this. Let me see if I can get this. Here we go. Okay. So I put together just a few thoughts here on what's been going on, recently. So I was able to meet on site with our consulting engineer at Niche to take a look at the Stormwater Basin 2, and then also to review the sloped area that runs behind lot 4 and leads downhill towards lot 3, lot 2, and lot 1 through all those backyards. I don't know when the last time the board has been on site, but there's definitely a problem there. There's clear evidence of lots of rivets. There's not much plantings along that sloped area, so there's really nothing that's holding water back. The developer did put down some straw wattles, but that's a temporary measure, and it doesn't seem to be holding back any water. And then that stormwater management area does need to get mucked out quickly. There's, the stormwater permit allows you to have standing water there for no more than, I think, 72 hours. And there's clear ponding that's just been there for quite a while. So it's clear that some immediate action needs to be taken. We also have a problem with the developer needing to replenish the 53G account prior to our consulting engineer continuing to work on this project.
Were you able to reach out to Bob and ask him about replenishing that?
I have not yet. I was hoping to to also be able to let him know that we are looking to schedule a site visit. So from this meeting, absolutely, I'll be contacting him. So is it possible to start talking about dates now, or?
I mean, I'll do either way. It's easier to have Valerie just send out an email to all of us. If it's going to be too cumbersome to try to have all of us do it right now. And then she can make that date available to everyone. I know it, but what would the board like to do?
Yeah, I think that's what we've done in the past. I mean, I guess the question is, I think you said you were going to send the list of items to Niche to review, and then we do the site visit after that. So I guess when do we think that they'll be they'll have it reviewed?
So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to mute someone. There's a lot of background noise. So I did send the list of concerns to the consulting engineer, but again, he's not going to be able to, actually, he did say he'd provide comment on the site walk and comment on those concerns, but prior to going further than that, he would need to be replenished.
Yep.
He knows that we are having a planning board meeting tonight, but I understood that he would not be able to make the deadline of today, but I'm hoping to have it in the coming days. So it would, to your point, Mark, it would make sense to have a site visit once we've seen that feedback from him.
Yeah, I think bottom line is we want to have, kind of Niche review all the comments, put it together and kind of submit something, to us. I think we want to let Bob know right away that that account needs to be replenished, and we want to set a site visit, as soon as it makes sense to get out there. I know, we want to do sooner rather than later here. And that we want to talk about the multiple components on this list.
Okay.
Yep.
Hi, I'm a resident of Moderator Way, and I'm just curious, how many site visits do we need to address these issues? And at what point does the town or the board say, if one project is not complete after 2+ years, how is he able to still build on other properties when he hasn't completed one in itself? I'm confused on that.
Sorry, if you can just first say your name and address, and then.
79 Moderator Way.
Thank you. This is still an active construction site, so we are, he's working through it. Obviously, if there's violations and stuff like that, we want to address that. So we're, just coming through winter and trying to see where the site is, and there's, some concerns. I thought it would be beneficial to have the planning board out there. That, the main concern is just to kind of bring us all up to speed, since it's been a little bit since we've been out there. But the main thing is getting Niche that account replenished, so Niche can do the proper oversight that we're looking for.
Thank you. And as far as I was concerned, that was basically the last meeting, was that Niche was to come out here and do the same thing, and that was completed, but we never got any feedback on it, from my knowledge. Nothing's been done. We can talk about trees all day long if you want to, but there's trees everywhere that don't look appropriate, that might fall down within Bolton, but especially in our new neighborhood. This is a brand new community over here. And, we basically have somebody building, what I call little mud piles, instead of having actual legitimate trees that will withstand the conditions of New England. And that's a problem for, I think, everyone within the neighborhood, amongst many other issues with pretty much every home in this neighborhood. as well as, you know, even the entrance, the lighting. So again, this has been spoken about numerous times, but nothing seems to get done. And I think a lot of us are getting frustrated, but we're trying to be patient. But, you know, at what point, you know, do we just say, oh, okay, you know, enough is enough? While he's building in other areas. Why is that even, you know, suitable? Like, how does that even, you know, go through to you guys? Like, don't you complete one project to move on to another? Or, you know, he's not allowing the funds clearly for this, you know, residential neighborhood, but he's building on others. That's completely ridiculous to me.
I mean, most of it's looked at as a project by project basis, and that's how we have to look at it. You know, this is the one project that's, you know, we're looking at right now. If there's other projects that he's going on, that we would address that on a project by project basis.
Well, he's on other projects, like the Bolton Woods one that you guys just previously mentioned. So he's already building another neighborhood, but hasn't finished one.
But that has no bearing on this project, I guess, for right now.
Well, maybe to you guys, but for my neighborhood, it does.
From our purview from the planning board, I guess there's no, you know, it's done by a project by project basis, or you know, permit by permit, project by project basis.
Okay, so my understanding is that that's just how the town works, correct? So somebody can build, you know, and do basically a half-assed job and then move on to the next one, do the same thing, have it not be legitimate, because most of us paid a decent amount of money, if not more, to live in a wonderful neighborhood with our children and, you know, support the town, the schools, we pay our taxes, we do our dues, but, you know, it's almost like we're just getting screwed out of everything, just to be blunt.
I think we understand your frustrations, and we're trying to work and you know, and get them documented and try to work through them and get them addressed. So that's what we're trying to do right now.
Okay, could you please also address the mailbox situation? Because I've been here for almost 2 years and still don't have a mailbox. I can't even get my mail here. It's as simple as that. That's one minuscule little issue.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm more than happy to chat with you tomorrow if you want to just give me a call at the office. But just for tonight, the purpose of this conversation was simply to update the board on what I've seen at the site and to just set a game plan here. So I think that
that's wonderful. I'll call you in the morning. What's your number?
978
Yep.
779 3308. I think I am new, and I think that's my number.
779 308
3308.
3308.
Yes.
And you don't know if that's your number, correct?
I can check this for you right now.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
You could just call town hall and they'll get you to her.
All right, as long as there's not a wait like JetBlue, you know, I don't mind.
Yeah, she just highlighted the number on the screen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so Valerie, you'll send out an email to us letting us know, you know, with regard to replenishing the count, niches availability to get there, and then we can follow up with getting a date to do a site visit.
Perfect. That sounds good.
I think that was there anything else with regard to correspondence? Or are we jumping onto approval of meeting minutes?
Yeah, we could go through to meeting minutes. I do not have minutes for March 10th yet, so that we'll look to that for the next meeting. But we do have the 24th.
Valerie, I'm so sorry to interrupt. This is Liz Hutchins. Can I just ask if the plan for the walkthrough, is that going to be a public meeting? Is that going to be like a full quorum, or is that the intention, I assume?
Oh, yeah, I think the intention was probably, I mean, if we're having the whole board there, then I think it automatically is a public meeting. Is that correct, Valerie?
I think site visits might operate differently, but of course, as a resident, I mean, you're you're free to come.
But
If
yeah,
that's what
no,
you're-
I'm
yeah.
actually, to be honest, less worried about that. I just want to, it's going to be so that I can make sure that I'm there. So if it's a public meeting, it should be posted. Otherwise,
I don't know that site visits do have to be posted. I can verify that might be a difference in Bolton, but
okay. Well, if and when you guys schedule, if you could just shoot me an email or something like that, just to let me know when it is, that would be helpful, just so that we're aware and can be available.
Now, site visits typically aren't a posted meeting, but if the developer or, the town wants to do it separate, but a lot of times when we do walkthroughs with the planning board, it's kind of on our own. But
okay. I know last time we did the walkthrough, it was like a little bit of an ordeal. So, but we also had Bob there and Rhino and a whole bunch of people. So I don't know if that sort of changed the scope of it, but
I know developers do it. Sometimes they'll do two. They'll do one for us and one for the public, just because we're there for specific, items, and we want to get through it.
Yep, understood.
all right.
Okay, so meeting minutes for March 24th. Did you guys get a chance to review them ahead of time? And if so, did you have any questions or comments?
No issue for me.
Okay. I think that I was all set with them.
I'll make a motion to approve the planning board minutes from March 24th, 2021.
Second.
And just roll call for all those in favor.
Peter Driscoll,
Aye.
Michael Gore,
Aye.
Eric Nyland,
Aye.
Oh, sorry, did you say I didn't hear anything.
I'm sorry, Daniel Spicer, and Mark Sprague.
Aye.
All right. I think we're good. Does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Thank you everyone very much.
Have a good night.
Everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Take care.